Washington State University. Go Cougs!
Our goal with the smart apartment was to have a place that was a real living space, that we could have the residents inside, have people as part of experiments come in, we could design experiments, we could test technology, and not have to go out into the community or further away with that overhead installing in a private home. And so we could install it, have it be permanent, and gather long-term data about residents. It's a 3-bedroom apartment. We talked about a 1-room and turned it into a control room, but the other ones are where people live. And so the goal there is they need to just live their lives. They go to class, they study, they have just usual being students. And what we get out of that is a lot of pattern analysis. When do they get up? When do they go to bed? How often do they come and go? The nature of the sensors we picked. We wanted low profile, privacy protecting sensors that are going to be robust and installable. This is a whole series of choices that you have to balance to find the right kinds of tools to go into people's homes, because they have to be willing to install them, they have to be easy enough to install, they have to be relatively inexpensive, and they have to be robust, because homes are always messy and different and complex and everything else. So the sensors we picked balance all of those, but one of the things they don't have is a lot of fidelity. If we put cameras in every single room, in every single home, we could tell a lot more than we can, especially about how well are you spooning food into your mouth. We can't tell that with these. Yeah, how are you interacting with the objects? And that's something that a lot of our systems don't really have. And so there's a trade-off for us. So to build all of this, we installed our computers and systems in this closet. They talk continuously 24/7 to the motion detectors, the door sensors that tell when those are open and closed, the temperature sensors that tell us all the different rooms. It controls all the light switches. And so all light switch presses, some of them are mechanical and will just work all the time. Other ones actually ask the server, what should I do? And then it'll turn on various lights as necessary. We do actually have control over that. There's an intercom system that we're logging and recording, so that during some of the studies, it's things like make a phone call is one of those activities of daily living. You pick up the phone, call your friend. Or it's also used by people in the control room as an intercom to punch in and say, hey, you need to make sure to do this, or are you ready to start? So that everyone running the experiment live upstairs while it's happening and the person doing it. And it's just a series of the same motion detectors, but we just changed their view. They're the only ones we call cat eye sensors because they have a little slit instead of the circles. Yeah, and so there's little beam breaks basically that cut along here. So there's one here, and there's one here, and there's one here. So as you walk along, it's tripping as I walk along this sensor route. And then we know exactly how far apart they are, and then you can calculate a velocity all the way from the door to the end of the walk, test and back. But then in day-to-day life, you'll get just walking in the front door and going to the living room, and we can tell how quickly you walked in. If you'll notice all the cameras that are in here, when we go upstairs and look at the control room, something that runs up there is all these cameras are actually not recorded for our experiments. They're only for annotating the data. They're only there to say, oh, what actually happened when the person was doing the study. But we don't do a lot of vision processing in this group. So we aren't gathering this all the time. It's just during a study for a little bit of annotation, and then we're done.
Just like labeling data.
Just for labeling. Okay. To say when, exactly at this moment is when they turned this on, or when they began this activity, or when they forgot something. And so all the cameras, one of the things that from the outset, we did not want to use cameras. Cameras are tough, mostly because people don't want them in their homes. So our sensor design is based around no camera solution. We didn't even want to do microphones. No cameras, no microphones. Because when I had to recruit people to live in a smart home, I had to walk in and look in the eye and say, well, to live in a smart home, there's going to be all kinds of sensors. And their first question is always, will there be cameras? And I say no. And then they don't kick me out of their house, which is a legitimate thing. I don't want cameras. And so can we do it without that? And so in general, our smart homes don't have the cameras. This one does, but it's because of the high density research being done, the focus on the very fine details of activities. And they're only here under very controlled circumstances. And the cameras themselves are on a physical switch, so that as when you turn the power off to the cameras, the only way to turn them back on is to physically come in the home and turn them on. And that ensures that the residents have total control. There's no way to hack in and get your cameras up and running. You must be in the building. So those kinds of things have been a focus for us, is ensuring privacy, ensuring installability. But the trade-off has been we're kind of one hand behind the back kind of work here because we have lower fidelity data. So as far as some of the sensors, you'll see that some that are just posted on ceilings, they point straight down. They only see about this much of the floor, so they give you a very localized view of where the motion is happening. So within this room, it's only a handful of places, despite the fact that there's 4 people in here. At the same time, we sneak one in the corner that's a much more classic security style sensor, what we call area sensors, to just tell us if someone's in the room. Because one of the problems is these sensors are very good at saying, haha, there's motion, and then they say nothing afterwards. Because if I just stand really still, it won't say anything. Eventually the sensor will turn off, and then it will just never say anything else again, because it doesn't say how much heat there is, only a change in heat. And so as soon as I move, it goes, aha, they're still there. But having sensors that can cover whole spaces, so they catch movement anywhere and in between other ones, very valuable. So then over the doors, you'll see the contact switches. So the magnet, when it comes and goes, is just a classic home security style sensor. Oh, do you have it up and running? Yeah, so when he opens the door, what you'll see is this green bar right here is the door opening, and then when he closes it, it'll go away. And so in our data set that has now been logged, it's already back at our main server already, is the opening and closing of the door. All the red dots are motion detectors turning on and off. The big yellow fields are the lights being on. There's the numbers are a combination of temperature values. So for example, it's 68 degrees here at the back door, whereas additionally, the sensors report how bright it is. The motion detectors have light sensors. It's not an incredibly accurate solution, mostly because we're occluding the view and they're not using an actual lux sensor. They're using a photovoltaic resistor. And so, but you can tell when lights turn on and off. You can see the sun coming up. When you're sitting down and looking at this this view, you can in no time tell what people are doing, because you'll see them. Because you'll know there's a bed here, this is the kitchen, this is the living room, and this is the bathroom. So you'll see them get up and then go in here, and then they'll come out after a little while, and they'll go into their bedroom, and they'll go in and hang out here, and it'll kind of vanish for a bit, and then hang out here for a little bit, and then go back to the bedroom, and then they'll come on down the stairs, and they'll go into the kitchen, and you're going, okay, looking at the time, that's about 8 a.m. Oh, look, they got up, they went to the restroom, they went back to the room, and then went to the shower. They showered, then they went downstairs, and you can see the temperature over the shower will go up as they use it, and then they'll come back into the room and they'll get dressed, and then they'll go downstairs and they'll be in the kitchen for a little while, and then they'll come out to the table. And you're going, okay, you can tell what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So it was an act of translating between how is it that humans perceive and model that data in your heads to determine what's going on, to get a computer to do the same thing. And once you've done it for a little while, annotating a home, when you're actually typing, okay, now they're cooking, now they're cleaning, then what happens is you stop using this tool. And you actually just read the sensor data raw, because you eventually end up with a map of all the sensors in your head, and you can actually see the events just happening. You just start scrolling down the data. You'll be able to process tens of thousands of data points in a minute. You're just like, and we know we can get a computer to do the same thing. We have a lot of temperature data about this house.
It's probably cheap.
Well, yeah, temperature sensors cost nothing to add, so they just throw them in. They also, all the battery-powered ones report the battery levels, which is why Brian knows which ones to change. That's the purple bar here. is to say which one has anything at all. And you notice this one's got really low and isn't changing. That means it turned on and died. So that sensor, he's going to go up and change it, and he'll put a new battery, and after a moment it'll start ticking over and the bar will go back up. Yeah, so this is it. So to say, did it say occupied?
It says occupied.
Yeah. So this, what we did is we actually, just a second. So it's still just the same door sensor that we use on the doors. They can have external connectors. We actually unstitched the chair, and so if you want to sit in there, we actually unstitched the chair and wired in the occupancy sensor. So when you sit, the pressure sensor says you're there. And then that allows us to get very accurate timing on the clinical tests that involve sitting and standing transitions. So that's, yeah. And because it's all wireless, it can be anywhere in the house and it'll work just fine. The kitchen is looking lovely, but we have, for example, the doors in the kitchen are wired up, so we know when doors are opening and closing. There's actually inductive coil measurements inside the stove, so we could tell when burners were on. We've done work with that. There's a temperature sensor specifically right above the burners of the stove, because one of the things we do in private homes, because wiring anything electrical is expensive, what we've done is we just decided, let's put a temperature sensor over the stove, and you know when it turns on. Yeah. Because you can see it. You'll watch all of the sensors, all the temperatures in the home will be kind of going along like this, and all of a sudden the stove will go, woo! We did a similar thing with the refrigerators. We used to put sensors, the door sensors on the sides of the refrigerator, because we wanted to know when are people getting in and out. It's a big part of eating and cooking and day-to-day life. The problem is refrigerators are actually designed to be slick, so our sensors would fall off. We tried quite a range of sticking and magnets and everything else to try and get them to stay on. So instead, at some point or other, when we went to the wireless setup, there was one day in the lab where we're all sitting around trying to figure out what to do about these sensors on the doors, because I was having to drive to Seattle to fix sensors about every 2 months, and that's a lot of driving to Seattle. And so at some point I went, could we just put one inside? They're wireless, right? So we grabbed a motion detector in the lab and threw it in the refrigerator in the lab, and just started opening and closing the doors and moving it around, and it seemed to work just fine. We threw one in the main office and put a sign on the refrigerator saying "Sensor for Smart Home Research," just telling when the door opens and closes. It turns out we can tell when you open and close the door, not by measuring the door. We're using motion detectors in there. So we can tell when the light level goes from 0, because it's dark inside your refrigerator, to really bright when the door opens. We don't even aim them to see the person. We don't even look for the motion.
You can even see if people left the fridge open.
Yeah, you can tell if someone left the fridge open. And so it's a much simpler solution.
It's so weird.
Yeah, there's one way in the back. There's a motion detector on the back side. It doesn't matter where we put it, really. We just throw it in there, and it works great. And it's just a case of a twist on how you make use of the sensors to get the data you need. In the kitchen, there's a lot of sensors just because it is such a high fidelity space. It's compact. You do many different things in small areas, and you need to have enough sensors to be able to tell the difference. So you'll find that when we do our Smart Home in a Box kits, say, for example, bedrooms have 3 sensors, kitchens have 5. And it's just the difference of the fidelity of what we need in the space. Let's go upstairs and go see the control room. So what you're seeing is on the left are the actual events coming in from the sensors throughout the home. And that's the rate they come in at. It sits a little over 1 per second. I think depending on what's happening, especially when people are here, it can get up better than that. Brian's currently logged into the main server, and you have the ability to watch the data live. They also can see the cameras from downstairs up here, so they can watch activities. And they also have a tool that we call the RAT. It's the real-time annotation tool. So when you design a study, you can describe all the activities and messages that you would like to send into the data set. And then in real time, you can sit there and click buttons and say, they did this, oh, they're doing this, they've started this, we've stopped that. And that information is injected into this data stream along with everything else. Our Smart Home in a Box solution is almost laughably lightweight anymore, because this apartment has about 64 motion detectors in it, which is a lot. The private homes we do are more like 20 some, and you still go, that's a lot of sensors. Yeah, but when you divide them up over however many rooms, you end up with 2 and 3 per room, except for kitchens, they end up with a few extra. And they go away, they vanish. Because when you're in a room and there's only a couple of these, one in the corner, one over the door, one over a key element like a chair, you don't see them very much. And the residents have consistently replied and responded that within a few weeks, they don't even notice them anymore. The prompting systems are a different story, but the actual sensors and data gathering, they don't blink, they don't beep, you don't interact with them, they're up and out of the way, so it doesn't impact your life. And that was a key component for us, is it doesn't make any demands on the residents. And it's almost difficult to explain that when we install the system, they don't change their lives. And it just kind of is around them, but doesn't impact them. But it does provide us how they're doing, what their daily lives are like, and then allows us to begin assisting them, assisting their caregivers, and building new technologies to be much more direct with how we intervene on day-to-day life. First stage, we have to be able to monitor it before we can make any decisions. Yeah. And that's what we spend most of our time on. It's more than we have time for. I assure, as I said, this is huge. It's enormous, and we've looked at it. It's been used, and some other people have used our data to do some work with that, and there are other research groups working on it. I just know it's a big part of what's possible here.